I'm the director of the School of Public Health Career and Professional Development Center and a member of the Diversity Community of Practice Assessment Committee, along with Virajna, Teddy, and Jabra, who put this together. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that the University of Minnesota Twin Cities is built within the traditional homelands of the Dakota people. It is important to acknowledge the peoples on whose land we live, learn, and work as we seek to improve and strengthen our relations with our tribal nations. We also acknowledge that words are not enough. We must ensure that our institution provides support, resources, and programs that increase access to all aspects of higher education for our American Indian students, staff, faculty, and community members. Although we have an action-packed agenda today, we want to create an open, relaxing, and welcoming environment for you all. You'll notice we haven't built any formal breaks into the schedule. However, please take care of yourself and take breaks as often as necessary. The restrooms for those who identify as male are to the right over here, and for those that identify, is that right? Opposite. I had a restroom dyslexic moment. Sorry about that. But the gender-neutral restrooms are located on the second floor in room 237B. Thanks so much for joining us today. I hope you learn a lot. In fact, I know you will learn a lot. Jenny?
Good morning. My name is Teddy Potter. I use she, her pronouns. I am a clinical professor in the School of Nursing, where I coordinate the Doctor of Nursing Practice in Health Innovation and Leadership. I'm the current director of inclusivity, equity, and diversity, and also I'm moving into the new role, which is director of planetary health. So we're going big with our patients in the School of Nursing. We're working on issues of climate change and other environmental issues. I wanted to talk about the beauty of the DDDD in that it's groundbreaking, it's novel, and we started it with the hopes of really being disruptive and transformative in how we approach diversity here at the University of Minnesota. Traditionally, diversity data ended up in the hands of some people and not all people. And consequently, even those some people are good people, the right questions of the data weren't always asked. So we've blown the lid off of the data and said the data really belongs to students, staff, and faculty. And instead of using it just to evaluate at the end of a program, we're going to flip it and use data to drive excellence and to drive transformation of our systems. So that's very novel. When Raj and I speak about it, and we spoke at NCORE about this, it's just a whole different way of thinking. Nobody's thinking that way yet. So we're early adopters, we're early pioneers in this whole way of saying data, it belongs to everyone. So we're very glad you're here. We want to do a special welcome to the people who are attending remotely and let you know that even though we can't see your faces, we can feel your presence and you are very much part of this dialogue. So have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Teddy and Vic. I'll just add a few more comments before I welcome our keynote speaker here. My name is Virajna Singh. I'm Associate Vice Provost in the Office for Equity and Diversity, and I'm also a faculty and researcher in the College of Design. I wanted to thank our sponsors. So this event specifically could not have happened without the Office for Equity and Diversity, the School of Nursing, and the Office for Undergraduate Education. So thank you for making this happen. I did want to mention the relevance of the topic today. We have taken on a variety of topics in the diversity data deep dives in the past. As some of you know, and they're all on our website, the dcop.umn.edu. And specifically today, for the first time, we're focusing on classroom climate and multicultural student success. And the reason for this is, at least from my perspective, it seems like there is a lot of work happening in addressing issues of diversity and climate across our institution. But we are now at a point where we have to take on specifically what is happening in the classroom and the impacts it has on our students. And that can be done in multiple ways. And it's my hope that you all in this room and online, as well as many others in the institutions across our roles as faculty, as staff, as students, can come together to make a difference here. But perhaps one of the starting points is immersing in the data around it. And we have a lot of partners here who are going to be presenting today who have been doing deep dives into this work. And so maybe it's a little hard to convey all of that in just one day, but it'll give you a sense of what the work that's going on, the impact it's making, and then who to connect with if you want to go deeper into this. I also wanted to mention that we are, as you'll see in your program, we're going to focus on institutional insights on undergraduate student data, on graduate student data, and then there's classroom climate related to mental health. But especially in the afternoon, I wanted to bring your attention to the fact that we're also celebrating First Gen Week this week. And so we have a special session that's interactive that is focused on first-gen college students and their work through a photo voice project. So we'll actually have photographs lined here on our side in the room, and our online participants have received a PDF of that file. So it's going to be qualitative data as well as quantitative data that you will see today, which is also something our assessment committee has committed to. We want to make sure all kinds of data are represented in these DDDDs. So I just wanted to mention my colleague Jabra Khawas, who's also the One Stop Student Services and University Veteran Services Assistant Director, will be co-hosting for the online participants. So again, welcome to our online participants. And if you have any questions or needs as they come up, please let us know. We're trying to monitor them. And with that, I'll transition to welcoming our speaker, Rebecca Ropers. Rebecca Ropers is Vice Provost for Faculty and Academic Affairs and Professor of Higher Education at the University of Minnesota. As Vice Provost, she has responsibility for promotion and tenure, the Center for Educational Innovation, Faculty and Academic Leadership Development, and Faculty Awards. Additionally, she's collaboratively responsible for promoting an environment in which a diverse faculty are recruited and supported. Roper's previous leadership roles include Director of Women's and Gender Studies Program and Women's Center at the Louisiana State University, and Chair of the Department of Organizational Leadership, Policy and Development at the University of Minnesota. She has a long bio, so I'll end it here and invite you to the stage. Please welcome Rebecca.
Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you this morning. I've had an interesting week, and I was talking with Kate earlier about whether or not I feel inspired, invigorated, or just agitated, because I've had the chance this week. It's been a bit of an unusual week in the sense that I got a chance to hear from Jeff Milam, who came in and some of you interacted with earlier this week, and then the medical school had a guest speaker or guest facilitator of a really meaningful workshop yesterday too, and then being able to spend time with you is just really a treat. So welcome. I've been asked to give a welcome this morning, which I'm thrilled to be able to do. And I do just want to give a shout out to Virajna Singh, who I don't know if this idea came solely from you, but I think you were the one who picked it up and ran with it. So thank you so much for your work in doing that. As a university, and particularly as a research university that has a public mission, I think we have a commitment to do this work. I think we have a commitment to look at the data to inform our practices and think about how those data, excuse me, can guide our actions in all of our critical areas. And I would say that equity, diversity, and inclusion is absolutely one of our most significant critical areas because it touches every single thing that we do. It seems to me that new questions are constantly arising in this area. I think we could look at the headlines almost any day and come up with new questions or implications. So I want to pose a question or two that I'm currently wrestling with and that relate to what we might call diversity data. So as I mentioned, some of us had a chance earlier in the week to engage with Jeff Milam. And Jeff has been a scholar in diversity in higher education for about 3 decades. He reminded us that sometimes it is effective to tweak current practices, so changing them around the edges to take steps towards diversity. And other times we need to question the systems we use and truly transform them, as Teddy was talking about in her remarks this morning. So data from all dimensions of campus climate, historical, compositional, psychological, behavioral, and organizational and structural can, in fact, inform all of our decisions in that regard. And since most of my daily work focuses on faculty, an example of the first kind of improvement, the kind that I'm going to say tweaking around the edges, comes to mind is the revision of our tenure policy in 2007. And it states, and this is our current policy, interdisciplinary work, public engagement, international activities and initiatives, attention to questions of diversity, technology transfer, and other special kinds of professional activity by the candidate should be considered when applicable. So I wasn't at the university when this was being discussed, so perhaps it felt like a major change at the time, and perhaps some of you were involved in those discussions. However, looking at it now, it feels more like a small opening, a small change. As Jeff described earlier in this week, in his school at UC Santa Barbara, all merit reviews for faculty take diversity into consideration. If I understood him correctly, all faculty are asked during their annual merit reviews and at promotion and tenure time, how they advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and they're evaluated on those efforts. That seems to me to have a better chance for transformation, if that's what we want, which I know it's what we say we want. I suspect that all of you might be able to think about examples that are closer to home for you in the work you do every day that might raise similar questions about, are we tweaking around the edges, or are we really thinking about transformative systems? So Naeem Medjoun, who many of you know as a colleague formerly in CEHD, raised a question on a panel about a decade ago that has stuck with me ever since. And he asked, what if systems are producing precisely what they are intended to produce? For those of us who come from privileged positions, it's fairly easy to look at our systems as good. After all, they worked for us in some way. We got to where we are in those systems. And then to consider data that show inequities is somehow aberrant. You know, acknowledging, those of us who are really well-intentioned and want these educational systems to work, acknowledging that something went wrong, but not saying that actually, in fact, the system was designed to produce exactly what it, in fact, produced. So what if we looked at the data that we are collecting and discussing in these and other forums and truly took Naeem's challenge to heart? Our systems are producing these data. Our systems, to which at some degree that we are in charge of, are producing these data. If this is the case, are we satisfied? And if not, will small improvements suffice? Or are there more significant aspects of our systems that we need to change? What do our data tell us? I recently looked at faculty data, which tell us that across the University of Minnesota, women are 30% of full professors. If we want our faculty to match the United States Census, we need to hire approximately 780 faculty members from underrepresented groups. Between 2005 and 2018, the percentage of underrepresented minority faculty here at the University of Minnesota rose from 4.6% to 6.1%. In the United States population, the percentage of people from those same groups rose from 29% to 33%. At this rate of change, we're not making any progress. And ultimately, given the demographic shifts, our university will not be sustainable. I would argue that this measure of compositional diversity relates strongly to the historical, psychological, behavioral, and organizational dimensions of our campus climate as well. And I know we're focusing primarily on student and the student experience and classes here today, but I would argue that faculty and who we have as faculty have a dramatic effect on those questions. So I'm going to be thinking today, as I listen to the presentations, about what our university data tell us about systems. There are many different dimensions of diversity, all of which are important to consider, since the success of our mission requires that we engage with a vast range of human experiences, both in asking our questions and determining which questions to ask, but also in seeking solutions and finding answers. Those people who I find most compelling these days are people who are finding ways to talk about inclusivity in broad and intersectional ways. I hope we can listen together to consider what our community members and our data are telling us about what we need to transform. Thanks so much.